Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bolt Report. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is my good friend and co host, Michael Wax. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the 2021 NHL Draft that just took place. It just wrapped up, and we're going to be recapping all of the Tampa Bay Lightning's picks that they had in this draft. Michael, I think a pretty decent draft from the Bolts this year. How you feeling today?
Yeah, overall, I would say that it was a solid draft. I would say that there are a lot of projects in this draft. There was really no surefire thing for any of the teams, I don't think, because we've gone through this before. The 2020 and 2021 drafts were really deeply trying to be scouted because of COVID. Like you couldn't go to games, you couldn't talk with people. The scouts had a very difficult time. And with that in mind, I think the Lightning did fairly well. So let's get into these picks.
First thing to note, though, before we get into the picks, is that the Lightning did not have a first or second round pick. Those were dealt out in trades. One of them to acquire guys like David Savard, who helped the Lightning ultimately win a Stanley Cup. So, very well worth it, even though we didn't get to have a first round pick. So, the first pick for the Bolts was in round number 3. It was pick number 96 for the Bolts, and they selected right handed defenseman Roman Schmidt. Roman Schmidt played in 70 total games last year. He put up 5 goals, 17 assists for a total of 22 points. He's listed at 6'6" and is 209 pounds. Michael, personally, I really like this pick, mainly just specifically because it is a right-handed defenseman, which we have talked about many times in this channel. The Lightning are very thin at. You look at who they have, up and playing for them right now. It's Jan Ruda, Eric Chernak, and then it was David Savard, but he's likely out now, so it's going to be Cal Foot, and that's about it. They really do not have a ton of right-handed defensemen, so to be able to add to that depth, whether it is a big project, good pick, whatever you want to say, is a good overall thing for the Lightning to add to that right-handed depth.
Yeah, and it's not just right-handed depth in terms of what they have on the main roster, which right now is what, like you mentioned, Ruda, Cernak, and Foot. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought Luke Shen back as well. Ben Thomas is another name. The only Syracuse Crunch right-handed defenseman they have currently is Alex Green, who they signed to an entry-level contract last year. Like the organizational depth at right-handed defenseman is bordering on disgusting. It's really, really bad. And so if you get someone that is a right-handed defenseman, no matter the size, no matter the speed, no matter the skill, it puts a body there at least. Now, there have been differing opinions. A lot of people said that they liked this pick, that they thought that Schmidt was going to go in the late second, early third. A lot of people said that Schmidt was probably going to go in the fifth round at the highest and maybe wasn't even draftable. His skating is a massive problem. Barb Underhill, who's the Lightning's technically skating coach, she's skating coach for a lot of teams, but especially for the Lightning. She's helped out people like Brian Boyle and Oleg Samsonov, who was another defenseman that the Lightning drafted that was big and right-handed. She's going to have to work with Schmidt because his skating is just not up to par. But in terms of his defense and the fact that he does put some points on the board, that's nothing but good for the Lightning. All they have to do is work on this one area, and luckily for them, they have someone that specializes in that area.
And again, the most important part, we need that depth right now in our organization. So, personally, I thought a good pick from the Lightning. Now, the next pick for the Bolts was supposed to be in round number 5. However, the Tampa Bay Lightning would surprisingly actually kind of caught me off guard. They would trade up to pick number 126 in the fourth round. They traded that pick with the Montreal Canadiens, and in exchange for this fourth round pick, the Lightning sent their 2022 fourth round pick to the Canadiens in order to get this pick. And with the pick, they would go out and select for Dylan Duke. Dylan played in 79 games last year. He put up 39 goals and 27 assists for a total of 66 points. And Michael, I'm excited about this pick for one specific reason, and that's because JBB went up to go get him. Looking at the rankings for him, he was projected to go somewhere in the second and third round as well. He ended up going in the fourth to us. And with how good the Lightning scouting department is, they're really good at picking at some of these later picks. And the fact that the Lightning moved up to make sure they could go get this guy, that's a good sign. JPB was also later on NHL Network interviewing, and he had said that this is a Dylan is a bolt to him, is what he specifically said, which shows you that this is a guy they want in the organization. They like this is their he fits their style of play, which I think is a really good sign. So I'm really excited to see how he can turn out for the Bolts and how he plays over the next couple of years. But I think this is definitely a pick to keep your eye on if you're a Bolts fan, as he could potentially turn into something very nice.
Yeah, and you don't normally see, especially in the last two drafts, teams trading up because, as I mentioned earlier, scouting was a lot more difficult this year. But JBB's done that twice now. He did that in the last draft with Jack Finley, who he traded a second and a fourth for. And I'm pretty sure that this pick was Montreal's pick that they got from Tampa Bay last year in the Finley deal. So the Lightning just kicked the can down the road and they said you can have our fourth next year. Uh, Finley was really decent overall in his time in the minors last year. Now, Dylan Duke is one that I'm excited about because the draft stream that I was watching, I'd like to thank NHL Network because of the fact I couldn't actually watch the draft. But the draft stream I was watching, the guy who is Nathan Grab on Twitter or on YouTube as well, was very excited. He was talking about how this guy was probably someone that should have gone in the first round, maybe in the later part of the first, early part of the second. He fell all the way to the fourth round, and the Lightning, ever the opportunist, got up and got him. And the Lightning's left wing depth is not as bad as the right defense, but it does leave for some questions. Like there are some questions going into Orlando and Syracuse next season. The main roster is fine, but the minor leagues, they have some questions. And Duke's not going to come over right away. But if he can be one of those guys that can score for you, especially in the minor leagues, that'll call him up essentially to the NHL at some point. I think he could be a solid middle six forward.
Yeah, he'll be one to keep our eye on, and it should be an interesting pick for sure. The fact the Lightning traded up to get to him says a lot about the pick. But moving on to the Lightning's next pick, it was their pick in the fifth round, 160th overall. The Lightning would select center Cameron McDonald. He has played in 30 games last year. He's put up 10 goals and 7 assists for a total of 17 points. He's listed at 6'1", is 190 pounds. So a center, a pick that I wasn't my favorite pick, I would say, just because the Lightning have a lot of center depth. But a solid pick overall. He's definitely got a potential upside to him with some of his play. He, as elite prospects put it, when the puck rests on the blade of a teammate, Cameron can slip away from coverage, hide behind the back of defenders, and drive the net sneakily to tap passes in. That's a really good guy to have on your team, a guy that can play in front of the net and put pucks in. Hey, look at Ross Colton, who scored the game-winning Stanley Cup goal in game number 5. He was in front of the net. Guys like that can sneak away and find a way to put the puck and tap it in are sometimes very valuable to teams.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think we put too much value on sometimes is the position that they play, especially as a forward. He's a center. What does that mean for the Lightning? He can play all three because the Lightning have so many centers on not only their main roster, but they're so good in Syracuse with Coach Ben Giroux of making sure that they are prepared when they come up to the Lightning to play multiple forward positions. So even though he's a center, ultimately, I don't think that's going to stick. If he's a great face-off guy, that's awesome. They need stuff people like him, especially with the loss of Yanni Gord and Barclay Goodrow. Uh, Ultimately, I like McDonald. I think he's going to be a solid pick for the Lightning. Uh, we're getting into the rounds now, and this is part of the fascination of being a good team. You have to nail these picks because you don't have the surefire picks that you do in rounds 1 and round 2. But with the Lightning, they've earned the trust to say, we like this guy, we're going to take this guy, and we're going to try to develop him. So that is where McDonald's standing really is we have some confidence in him and we think he's going to do well. He is not so good at pace of play. That was one of the things that Bolt Prospects was talking about in their write up of the draft. But ultimately, he's got tools. And at the end of the day, that is exactly what you need for the Lightning.
And that's a good point. Just because they're listed as a center specifically does not mean they're going to play center and center only. We've seen guys move in different positions all of the time. That's a thing that happens a lot. But moving into the next pick for the Bolts in the sixth round, they had the 192nd overall pick, and they would go back to the defensive side of things as the Bolts selected left handed defenseman Alex Gagne. He played in 53 games last year, putting up 3 goals, 23 assists for a total of 26 points. He's listed at 6'3" and is 207 pounds. Michael, we talked about how the Lightning need right-handed defense, but the Lightning opt to go with a left-handed defenseman here. And I think there is, again, a lot of upside to Alex. And as you mentioned, the Lightning have earned the trust to whatever guy they draft, you trust them to make the right choice because they have shown time and time again how good they are at doing that.
Yeah, and you sent this over to me as the draft was going on. This is from Leo Staglione Jr. He's talking a lot about Alex Gagne in May and June. And he said that he is probably the best defensive defenseman in the United States Hockey League, the USHL. He got that as a direct quote from somebody in his article, which is high praise. And the Lightning have so many good defensive defensemen. Ryan McDonald, Eric Chernak, David Savard, like those guys have been great. And they've added a little bit of offense to their game to make their game more well rounded. Now, Gagne, if he's not going to produce offensively, at the end of the day, that's fine. Not all 6 year guys are going to prove that way. I think he's got a leg up on a lot of the Syracuse and Orlando guys, though, because he's defensively responsible. He's positionally accurate most of the time, and he's a good skater. Like he can get back into position, which is something that we have not said about the majority of these draft picks so far. I think this could be a really, really good pick for the Lightning. I would say that overall, Duke is probably the biggest home run of this draft, but Gagne is right up there.
Yeah, he's going to be an exciting pick to keep our eyes on again because, like you mentioned, he got some high praise. I believe that quote came from his coaches, but you can't quote me that on that 100%. But the fact that people have said that you can put him out against other teams' top line says a lot about his defensive game. Moving on to the seventh round, the Lightning had three different picks in this round, so the Lightning were quite busy in round number 7. And with that first pick, it was the 196th overall pick in the draft. The Lightning would go on to select, and forgive me, I'm going to butcher this name, left-handed defenseman Daniel Polenkov is the best chance I have at pronouncing it. He played in 56 games last year. He put up 5 goals and 15 assists for a total of 20 points. He's listed at 6'1" and 194 pounds. So another left-handed defenseman, Michael. I think this was the one pick that maybe most Bolts fans kind of questioned a little bit and wasn't their favorite. But he does have some upside like any of these prospects do as well.
Yeah, I be honest, I don't know a lot about Plenkov. Like he's a left-handed defenseman. You could read all the stats, but I didn't see a ton of him, so I don't know really what the Lightning are expecting. I was surprised that they selected another left-handed defenseman. They could use another right-handed defenseman in their system. They could use some goalies because most of the goalies that are or were picked in the last 3 rounds are coming over to North America now, and you sort of need to cycle through and make sure that you have some in the pipeline as well. I was fine with it, I guess. This is definitely the weakest pick of the draft, in my opinion.
Moving on to the Lightning's next pick, though, it was the 211th overall pick here in the seventh round. The Lightning would go away from the defenseman now, and they would select left wing Robert Flinton. He played in just 14 games last year, but he put up 13 goals, 11 assists for a total of 24 points. He's listed at 6'2" and is 203 pounds. So a very small sample size, and Flinton is also still extremely young. I believe he is 17 years old. But he put up some really good offensive numbers. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays in the NCAA. He is going to Dartmouth, I believe, for college. And if he can continue to do what he does on the offensive side of things, he could be a good pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that he's 17 makes me feel really old. But this is a pick that really reminisces of Sammy Walker. Sammy Walker was drafted in the seventh round, and I believe it was 2016. I don't want to get that wrong, but I think that was the year by the Lightning. And he's one of the best college players in the world right now. Also, reminds me a little bit of Ross Colton because that is the same exact thing. You're drafting someone very late in the draft that's going to university, is going to dominate for a while, and then is going to come into your organization. Ross Colton just scored the Stanley Cup winning goal. So if you can get that same type of production from Flinton, I would be just okay with that. Like it's Ross Colton seems to be a bit of an anomaly. Like I don't think anybody expected him to be this good. But if you can get Robert Flinton to come up to the main roster and be that way in year 2 or year 3, the sky's the limit for him. Even if he's a seventh round pick, we've seen the Lightning nail their seventh round picks before with Walker, with Ryan Lowen, who was another one that was a college guy that ended up getting into the system and is performing very well, and Andre Palat. Like they've been really good at drafting the seventh round for a long time now.
Yeah, very impressive from them. I mean, Andre Palat, man, he has been so good for the Lightning and was a seventh round pick, which is just absolutely crazy. And who knows where Ross Colton's going to be in the next couple of years. But let's talk about the Lightning's final pick. Not only was it their final pick, but it was the final pick of the entire NHL draft at pick number 224. Mr. Irrelevant, if you will, if you're a big fan of football, it's a term they often use there. And again, I apologize if I mispronounce this name, but the Lightning would select right winger Nico Huntinen. I again apologize if I mispronounced that name. Nico played in 44 games last year, put up 22 goals and 17 assists for a total of 39 points. He's listed at 6'1", 203 pounds, and another solid scoring player, Michael. That one of the things that a lot of scouts have said about him is he's a very good scorer. He's got a really good shot, but is not a good skater. So that is another project the Lightning are going to have to work on. But the Lightning have been known to do very well when they're working with people on their skating. So if they can fix that, they may have a really good shot at a good pick once again here in the seventh round.
Yeah, so the two biggest people we've said have had bad skating, I find ironically, are the first and the last pick. And with the first pick, Robert Schmidt, or Roman Schmidt, excuse me, his parents are skaters. Like they taught him how to skate. It's just that I don't think he was ready for hockey skating. It was more like figure skating. Like both of his parents were figure skaters. With with Houtanen, it's gonna be tough. Like Pete at Jolly Mean Giant on Twitter, who is the co-founder of BaltProspects.com, said this is Barb Underhill's new pet project. Like she's gonna have her work cut out for her. He was ranked as the 13th best scorer out of anyone in the draft. But can you get to the front of the net and try to score when you can't skate? Is the problem. So, hey, the seventh round, last pick of the draft, if you don't want anybody to try and sign him as an undrafted free agent, this is your guy. Like, you take a flyer on him. If he works out, great. If he doesn't, oh well. But as a skater, not great. As a scorer, I have a lot of promising feelings towards this guy.
Well, that does it for the draft for the Lightning. And it's important to remember, too, this is all just speculation. We are not experts. We do not know how these players are going to turn out. You really can't judge a draft class. Most people will say 3, maybe 4 years down the road. That's when you can start to say, okay, this pick worked out, this pick didn't. But hey, we hope that every single pick works out for the Lightning for obvious reasons. But Michael, your final thoughts here. I think overall, for what the Lightning had, I thought they did a good job for the most part. Would have liked them to see maybe take one more right-handed defenseman. You mentioned earlier before we started recording, maybe go after a goaltender. But for the most part, though, I think a good draft once again from the Bolts.
Yeah, and I was surprised overall. This is the biggest surprise that they didn't trade for a pick, which I think a lot of us were really expecting. But it's fine.
Well, hey, JBB did say that he expects the trade market to heat up on Monday. So we will have to wait and see if there's a trade that is then moved on Monday. But I know a lot of Lightning fans are still waiting, just like you.
the draft, it will be 2 days old at that point. Like it's already over, and we didn't have an opportunity at a higher pick, which is fine. Like that's what happens when you win and you pay for rentals. I thought the Lightning for their actual picks did a solid job. I cannot complain. The only complaint I really have is the abundance of left-handed defensemen, but they seem to really go after those guys. And if they find a college free agent they really like that's a right-handed defenseman, that should be their number one priority in the offseason. Ultimately, I have no real complaints about this draft.
Well, let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Would love to hear any and all thoughts that you have on this draft class. Let us know what your favorite pick is. Let us know what you think of the whole draft class as an overall. But that's going to do it for us in today's video. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like down below. Really helps us out here on YouTube. Lets us know you're enjoying these type of videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on future videos just like this one. Also, if you want to grab some Tampa Bay Lightning merch like my hat, my official Stanley Cup champion merch, and you want to support us in this channel, you can go down and check out our affiliate links down in the description. We have a Fanatics affiliate link, a Foco affiliate link. We also have a discount code over at Smack Apparel. You can use the code Bolt Report for 21% off your order. So be sure to go check that out if you're looking to pick up some more Tampa Bay Lightning merch. But with that said, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And remember, your Tampa Bay Lightning are your defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions.
Go Bolt.